Okay. Looks like we're live. It's the hit or miss classic guitar rock daily update. In fact, I don't think I've done one in months. I don't have any excuses other than I got a full-time job, and building a multimedia empire is not something that's easily done, in a few hours every week. But we're gonna try. I'm gonna try and do some updates, and I've been on YouTube since 2014, and I still don't understand it. I don't understand the algorithm. I publish crappy videos, and sometimes there's 24 views, and then sometimes there's 18,000 views, and I still don't know how it works. I do want to say this though: if you are in the market for a microphone stand, like a boom stand, I cannot unrecommend enough the AOKEO. I purchased this thing from Amazon because I had like the cheapy $15 mic stands. And to be honest, they've worked okay. The problem is they're a little too short. And so I've got this new kind of setup here. This is kind of where I do the radio station stuff right here. And so I'm trying to move everything. So I'm at least sitting in the same place for everything. That's why the backdrop's different and that sort of thing. Well, the mic stand I had before is just too short. So I got a new one, and I got this one, and it wasn't cheap. And it's a piece of crap. Probably sometime during this episode, you'll see it drop down. It won't even hold up the mic. So again, just so you're aware, do not buy the AOKEO microphone boom stand. It's a piece of crap. So that's my public service announcement for you all today. So let's jump into this. Neal Schon, you guys know I'm a big Neal Schon fan. Neal Schon, in fact, follows the channel, the podcast. We'll see if we can get him on sometime. I think that'd be awesome. That'd be cool. Neal Schon, really phenomenal guitar player, and I think totally underrated. He's a great guitar player. I love Journey. Anyways, he's posted a new image with the words Journey Beyond to his social media feeds. And then it says into the future. Journey Beyond, into the future. So, of course, speculation is he trying to do another Journey offshoot, another band. Now, remember, it wasn't too long ago, 2018 and 19, he had what he called Journey Through Time, where it was him, playing Journey music, obviously, and he's an original member of Journey. The Journey Through Time, which featured Greg Raleigh, Dean Castronovo, ex-Journey bassist Marco Mendoza. All of those guys are phenomenal players, by the way. But he got them together to do some stuff that was like the more back catalog, historic stuff. So he had Journey Through Time. Now he's got Journey Beyond. Now, of course, there's always been a lot of debate going back and forth since Steve Perry left the band or was asked to leave the band, depending on who you ask. They brought Arnell in. They've done a lot of touring, successful tours with Arnell. I saw them with Arnell in 2016. It was awesome. But Neal continues he's a player. That's what players do. Okay. They look for ways to play music. And when guys, I don't mean this as a slap against Steve Perry, but when guys decide they don't want to play anymore, then those guys that do want to keep playing, they got to do something. And of course, Neal, the founder of Journey, what's he supposed to do? Just give up on Journey material or playing Journey? So I don't know. I don't know if this will be something with Arnell or something without Arnell. And poor Arnell, he's just stuck in the middle. All he's doing is his job. He got hired to come be the singer in Journey, and he's done a great job. And there's all this side stuff going on. So it will be interesting to see what happens. Let me read this. I'm reading this from Ultimate Classic Rock. In this, is this his latest attempt to branch off from the group he co-founded in the early 70s? A filing that seeks protection for the phrase from the United States Patent and Trademark Office offers some intriguing hints. The Journey Beyond mark is intended to cover the categories of musical sound recordings, downloadable musical sound recordings, series of musical sound recordings, compact discs featuring music, downloadable music files, downloadable MP3 files and MP3s, recordings featuring music, musical video recordings, and pre-recorded videotapes, laser discs, and DVDs featuring music. I don't know why I just read that. I don't know why it's in the article. But Neal Schon filed this back in April. And according to the independent third-party trademark research tool USPTO report, USPTO report, that was just days before he initially posted a more bare bones image with the words Journey Beyond. He then began using the same words in hashtags, prompting plenty of fan speculation. So we'll see what happens. I follow Neal, and I'm a guitar nerd, so I love it. So one of the things that Neal does almost every day, he'll post just him sitting shredding on the guitar, different guitar, and he's just noodling, man. But it's Neal Schon. It sounds really good. I look forward to seeing those every day. I'm a Neal Schon fan. So let's see what happens. And dude, can you have too much Journey music? I'm a Journey fan, so I like it. Other people are like, it doesn't have Steve Perry, so it's not really Journey. Whatever. I get sick of hearing that. I got into an argument with the guy. Not an argument. I mean, it's online. You don't even know these people. It's silly. I'm silly for even stooping down to his level, but I do it. I take the bait. So there's a post about Chicago. Okay. And the thrust of the post, I can't remember the guy's name. It's a guy I follow, but he basically was making the case that, can you imagine that the band that gave us this also gave us this? And I don't think he meant it as a negative, right? He was showing like clips of 25 or 624 with Terry Kath shredding on the guitar. And then he showed mellow, like Hard to Say I'm Sorry, or If You Leave Me Now, Chicago stuff. And of course, you know, people, it's probably just kind of for clickbait, just to get people to argue. So people are chiming in and out about Chicago and how much they hate the later Chicago or how much they love the later Chicago or whatever. And I just chimed in and said, I got to be honest, I like both eras. I do. I love the mellow Chicago stuff. Hold me now. It's hard for me to say I'm sorry. I love that stuff. Who's not going to like that? I mean, in high school, I said I didn't like it, but actually I like it. I do like it. And anyways, this guy says, yeah, Chicago died when Terry Kath died. I'm like, Terry Kath died in what, 77, 78? So are they just supposed to go out of business because a member of their band died? Is Neal Schon just supposed to close up shop because Steve Perry has a sore back and doesn't want to tour? So there's really some crazy expectations we put on these musicians who want to be playing music. Neal Schon is a musician. He plays music. So if he can't do it with Steve Perry, guess what? He'll do it with someone else. And more power to him. I don't have a problem with that. More power to him. But we'll keep watching what happens with Neal and this Journey Beyond. I'm waiting with bated breath. We'll see what happens. Let me see here. Comments. You can comment if you're on Facebook, YouTube, or X. Hop in there and leave a comment, an insult, whatever. One of the cool things that came out of the Back to the Beginning show, remember, just like 2 weeks before Ozzy died, they had the Black Sabbath Back to the Beginning. And I hope you saw some footage. There was some cool stuff. It was really cool to see Jakey Lee up there playing. And how about Nuno? Nuno Betancourt was like the hero. He came in and he covered all kinds of, in fact, there was one solo that when Nuno originally was asked to do it, he was going to play like 2 songs. And then as things developed, he wound up playing, he just stayed up there and played. And I think even Jake asked him to cover one of his solos. because Jake has some arthritis problems. He asked Nuno to cover for him, and he did. And I think the way they did it is they kind of shared the solo and traded back and forth a little bit. I got to go back and watch to see. But awesome, Nuno. Awesome to see Jake. And there's an interview again. I read this from Ultimate Classic Rock. I don't know where it was originally, but Jake said he felt really grateful that he was able to reconnect with Ozzy at the Back to the Beginning. And of course, guys, 2 weeks later, Ozzy died. So all of these folks are thinking, oh gosh, I'm so glad that I did that. Think of the band. We still haven't heard, at least I haven't heard. There was one band that didn't want to participate unless they were getting paid. Remember, the idea of this was to raise money for a charity. And one band didn't want to do it unless they were going to get paid. A big band that you'd all know. I don't know who it is. Maybe we'll find out. So they probably feel like dirt bags. Now, maybe not. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. It was awesome to see Jakey Lee up there. And Jakey Lee talks about how happy he was that he was able to reconnect. He says, quote, I did always want to reconnect with him on whatever level, not necessarily musically, but that would have been nice. I didn't want it to end with getting fired and feeling like there was bad blood. And then they asked him, how he felt about how all of that went down. I never really took it personally. I got kind of screwed over on Bark at the Moon record, but I knew it was a business move and that it wasn't based around effing me over. Well, I think he's being charitable because he was effed over. And sadly, I love Ozzy. This is not a slam against Ozzy. I think it's kind of a slam against Sharon. There's a track record of them hosing band members. I mean, that's been the MO. Okay. Bob Daisley never got credit. Lee Kerslake never got credit until they sued and eventually got some acknowledgement or something. But that's just the way it's been. So the way it would work, Sharon would say, okay, you have to sign over your rights to this song. So here's Jakey Lee. First big break, he's playing with Ozzy. Yeah, you have to sign over well, I wrote this riff. I brought this, all these tunes that he brought. Oh, you have to sign it over. So Jake didn't get writing credit for Bark at the Moon and all the other songs on that album that he wrote. And that's just the way they did it. And of course, if you're a brand young up and comer, well, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll just sign it over. And he got hosed. And that's unfortunately the MO. That's the way that they treated folks. But Jake is philosophical about it. He admitted that he never felt good about his time with Ozzy. Quote, that might be my fault. It might have been me going online after the fact, which is always a bad idea, and reading about all the reasons why I was the worst Ozzy guitar player and starting to sort of believe it a little bit. Believe it. I don't believe it, but let it weigh on me. That's just human nature. You see something where there's 99 comments about how good you are, and then you read one where you're crap, and that's the one you remember. He says, I'm proud of what I did. I don't necessarily think it was the high point of my playing, but I was really good, and Ozzy did make me better. In Hollywood, I was maybe considered the top guitar player, or at least in the top 3, but when I joined Ozzy, I got better. So, yeah. He joked that his welcome at the farewell show had been so warm that he suspected someone had sent a memo around telling everyone from Nuno Bettencourt to Tom Morello that they should really be extra nice to him. He says, quote, I do feel a lot better. What I have to think about now, and this is a little difficult, is saying, okay, now I can go out with more confidence, have people talking about me and get a good thing going. I could also look at it as, well, that would be a good way to leave on that high note because I'm trying to figure out what exactly it is that I want to do now. Now, he says something here that I want to chime in on. Reflecting on his contributions to Ozzy's band, he said it had, quote, helped him confirm that Ozzy wasn't over just because Randy Rhoads had passed. I'm proud to have been a part of that. I always wanted to reconcile, tell him there weren't any hard feelings, and end things on a friendly note. I got to do that. I always want to insert here because people forget this in the Ozzy lore. When I saw Ozzy in 1982, June of 1982, Diary of a Madman tour, this is a few months after Randy had died, Brad Gillis was the guitar player. Brad Gillis was awesome. And Brad Gillis had the gig. Okay. He was the guitar player. And they would have kept Brad. I don't know if they would have kept him forever because they have a track record of, treating guitar players crappy. So he might have left. But remember, Brad's deal was he had 2 top 10 albums on the chart the same week with 2 different bands. You guys remember this? Speak of the Devil and the Night Ranger debut album were on the charts they debuted the same week. And they were both phenomenal albums. And Brad decided, hey, Night Ranger's that's my passion. I got to do that. Had Brad not left to go, and Brad left, he wasn't fired. Had Brad not left, there may never have been a Jake E. Lee in Ozzy. Okay. And I'm not here to debate who was better. I'm just saying that looking at the history, had Brad not gone to Night Ranger, who knows how long he might have stayed. There maybe never would have been a Jake E. Lee or a Zach. Who's to say? Because they were happy with Brad. Brad did a great job. He came in at a hard time and did a good job. And for my money, that Speak of the Devil album, if you want to hear live Sabbath material, that's the best album with live Sabbath material. I mean, that's my opinion. And I get in trouble when I say this. Brad played the Sabbath stuff better than Randy did because Brad was a Sabbath fan. Randy wasn't. Nothing against Randy's my favorite. Dude, Blizzard of Oz is my favorite album of all time. So people always come back to me saying, why are you ripping on? I'm not ripping on Ozzy. Blizzard of Oz is the greatest album of all time. Okay. So I am an Ozzy fan. When I say things like Ozzy wasn't a great singer, who cares? That's the greatest album of all time. Okay. So don't come at me saying I'm ripping on Ozzy. I'm not ripping on Ozzy. I get a little testy about that. But Brad could very well have been with Ozzy for another 10 years or 15 years. Who knows? So that what could have been. And people always forget Brad Gillis, or he's just a little footnote. But Brad Gillis was selected as the replacement, right? And had he not left, that sounds bad. Because he, I shouldn't say it that way. Randy died. They needed a new guitar player, obviously. Brad was the one they chose, and they were planning on moving forward with Brad. And had he not decided to go back with Night Ranger, because think of all this, all the machinations going on during the whole period that they're preparing for the live album and all of this, Brad's flying home recording stuff with Night Ranger. And I think Rudy was doing the same with Quiet Riot, if I'm got my timeline right. So the band was a little fractured after Randy, right? Ozzy and Sharon were hoping they would just they'd move forward with Rudy and Brad, and that didn't happen because they both wound up going back to their respective bands. How did I get on that? Okay, next one. The Guess Who. Now, the Guess Who has been interesting. We've had headlines and stories about the Guess Who for the last couple of years for different reasons than what this story is about. Remember, there was a touring entity called the Guess Who. Speaking of Rudy Sarzo, he was actually in. Rudy Sarzo has been in so many bands. Do you remember Rudy Sarzo was in Blue Oyster Cult for a while? Yeah, he was. But Rudy Sarzo was also in one of these incarnations of the Guess Who about 5 years ago. And this Guess Who was touring around. They had Guess Who's drummer was in the band. He was the only member, only dude that had ever been in Guess Who. He was the drummer. And so they called it the Guess Who. And they put out a few albums. And here's the thing that's kind of sad. The new Guess Who albums were actually really good albums. The mistake is calling themselves the Guess Who. So it's a tough place to be in, because here's an unknown band that there's lots of great bands that never have success, right? Now, they were thinking, hey, if we call ourselves the Guess Who, we can at least, leverage that back catalog, old people that don't know any different, that we really have nothing to do with the Guess Who will come see the show. And yeah, we'll play the Guess Who catalog. We'll sneak in a few new songs. Well, that only lasted for a couple years. Then Burton Cummins and Randy Bachman are like, dude, you can't do that. You can't call yourselves the Guess Who. So there's the whole legal thing. And so the band calling themselves the Guess Who, now they're in the middle of doing a tour, and they're now not allowed to play Guess Who songs. So they're calling themselves the Guess Who, not playing any Guess Who songs. They're only playing their new music. It was just a mess. But as I mentioned, the new stuff was actually pretty doggone good. Lead singer was a Robin Zander lookalike, sound-alike guy, and he had great pipes, and they had great poppy songs that really sounded nothing like Guess Who. They should have just, hey, we're going to start this band and we're going to call it blah, 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 whatever it is, and just not mess with the Guess. So I don't know what these guys are doing now, but they were talented guys. And Rudy Sarzo was part of it for a while. But that doesn't happen anymore. And here's why. Because now Burton Cummins and what's his name? Randy Bachman, they're getting back together to do like a Guess Who type show, tour, thingamajig. So Burton Cummins, this is from Randy Bachman's, what is it? Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is. He says, quote, Burton Cummins and I are bringing the Guess Who to Fallsview Casino in Niagara Falls on January 31st. So this is a ways out. Bachman says in a new social media post, we'll be playing the songs that helped shape Canadian rock and roll the way it was meant to be, heard live, loud, and from the heart. Hope to see you there. So this is the first time these guys have gotten together in quite some time. Of course, the Guess Who, that's Bachman and Cummins. And then, of course, Bachman Turner Overdrive spun out of that. Burton wasn't part of that. But they're getting together. I think that'll be cool. Randy's like in his 80s. Burton's got to be close. And I've seen some clips. Burton still sings pretty good. Randy still plays pretty good. So again, this is a common refrain. We talk about this all the time. You got to get out and see these guys. We've really only got a couple more years to see a lot of these guys because they're in their 80s, 70s, 80s. And you can either complain that it's not all the original members, or you can go out and see Randy Bachman one more time. It's up to you. They don't have Steve Perry. I don't want to go see him. Whatever. Your loss. One other thing, speaking of old guys, one of my favorite, just a great rock and roll voice, rock and roll musician, been a part of major bands, Glenn Hughes. Black Country Communion. Of course, he was in Deep Purple. He's worked with Gary Moore. He's done lots of stuff. He's one of these guys, kind of like Rudy Sarzo over the last 10 years, that has just been involved in multiple projects. Again, players want to keep playing. They don't care how. This is what they do for a living. They play music. So, yeah, you can criticize them for being parts of projects that, well, it's not the original band. Or you can say, dude's still playing. That's what he wants to do. Okay. Rudy Sarzo, Glenn Hughes, kind of the same thing. Glenn Hughes, great singer. He was in Black Sabbath too. Remember that? Made one album with them. Here's Glenn Hughes's problem, and he'll tell you this. raging drug addict for like 20 years. Hughes Thrall, great album from the early 80s, a lot of promise, but they were both so whacked out on drugs they couldn't even do a tour. Okay? Their own worst enemies. And he'd tell you that. But a really talented guy. Don't do drugs. Okay? Just don't do it. Blabbermouth.net interviewed him. There's no such thing as the music industry anymore, he said. It's not the same at all. It's just not the same world. From where I came from all those years ago, it's just completely changed. And here's where it gets interesting. The record labels are a waste of time. The people that work at record labels haven't got a clue what they're doing as far as musically. They might think they are great at business, but I don't think so. So it's just a different field to work with. And it's really difficult for new young artists, really difficult. And we've talked about that a lot here. The music industry is completely different. It's the yin and yang, the pros and cons of technology, of the internet, of streaming, all of these things that have changed and made the music industry different. It used to be there were just a few record labels, right? And they were the gatekeepers, and they would decide who was it and who wasn't. And then they would push it out to radio, and then radio would play it, and there were big tours, and they'd sell records and blah, blah, blah. That's the way we grew up through like the 80s. And then when the internet comes along, it changes everything. People listen to music different. They stream. They don't buy albums. They don't buy physical albums anymore. Record companies, there's so many of them. Anyone, and this is good. This is the democratization of the music industry. Anyone can produce an album. I mean, the technology exists that for with a few $1,000s worth of equipment versus millions of dollars worth of equipment, you can produce an album. Billie Eilish, we've talked about her a lot, whether you like her or not. Her and her brother produced an album in their bedroom, right? They recorded an album in their bedroom that was a platinum album. They didn't need a record company. And then, of course, once that happens, then, a record company comes and scoops them along. But there have been Justin Bieber, right? There are artists that have built their own career using their own platforms. You don't need record companies. Anyone can put music on Spotify now. And yes, I get it. You don't make any money from Spotify, but that's the way people listen now. They stream. So it's super tough. The days of a Led Zeppelin had their own airplane with a fireplace in it. Okay. They're flying around in their own private jet. That's over. Okay. So I hope they enjoyed it while it lasted, because now that ain't how it works. And yeah, the music industry has completely changed. So when we're listening to classic rock, we're not just listening to classic, to music of a bygone era. It's a taste of a completely different music culture. And that's over. So I guess the good about the way things are now is it has been democratized. Anyone can produce a record and push it out there. And I guess the bad news is now anyone can produce an album and push it out there, right? So yeah, it's a lot tougher for bands coming up. And Glenn makes the point. He was asked if he feels like he has to play the game again to stay relevant in today's music world. And here's what he said. And think about this. Do I feel like I have to play the game again? No. And I say that with all gratitude that I'm at a place right now in my life where I don't really have to worry too much about anything, because I've done pretty much everything I wanted to do as a child. All I want to still do is make music, play some shows, and have fun. And I don't get carried away with anything else other than playing music today, right now, in this very moment. That's Neal Schon. Okay, that's Rudy Sarzo. These are guys that are players, and they play. They play. Give me my next project, whatever it is. I'm a player, and I want to play. Other artists decide, hey, I made my millions. I don't really need to go out and do that anymore. Some physically can't, right? But others just probably, I made my millions. I don't need to do that. But then you can tell the players because they still go out, they still do it. It's not about the, that's what they do. It's in their blood. They can't do anything different. So Glenn Hughes, Rudy Sarzo, Neil Sean, that's what these guys do. Okay, they're players. They will keep playing. Even people sit at home saying, well, you should have retired when Steve Perry left 30 years ago. That's just ridiculous. Okay. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Check out the radio station. Go to classicguitarrock.net. It's classicguitarrock.net. You can click on the button there. It says CGR Radio or CGR Podcast. Click on either. We've also got the cool Classic Guitar Rock t-shirts, $15, and you'll look like $1,000,000. So check it out. All right. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys. Take care.